Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply, and we're going to make a beautiful car seat organizer. This is a great project, a little bit out of the box, but extremely helpful. Now, the two biggest points here. First off, we're going to work from a pattern, but make it your own. Drop these pockets in where you want and to carry whatever you want to keep in your vehicle. Second big point, we've got some hand sewing to do here. But if we don't have a machine, you know what? We're not going to let that stop us from creating a beautiful project. All right. Anything I use in this video, weaverleathersupply.com, or check below. We've got links there. Going to take you straight to our website. So let's step over here, look at our pattern. This is going to look like a complicated pattern. It really isn't. All we're doing here is we're sewing pockets onto one big main body. Some are very easy. Some we're going to bow a little bit. But all told, I've got measurements here you can absolutely use. I've done our legwork there. Now we've got digital pics. We're going to look at those shortly. But let's just get a feel of what we're doing here. So, right off the bat, we've got just a big main body. All we're going to do here, I'm going to take another piece, and again, we've got digital pics for this, but I'm going to lay this in. We literally are just going to glue it, chisel it, and sew it right where it is. Right here, we've got a rivet hole, and then we've got a snap hole. That's going to give us two billets there. That's a nice touch. When we jump up to our cell pocket, exactly the same thing. I'm just going to drop that in, glue it, chisel it, and sew it right where it is. Now for these three pockets, these are going to bow out for us. Let's start right here with our umbrella. So I've got this at 8 inches long, 7 wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a measurement from stitch line to stitch line. We're going 3 inches there. So therefore, when this bows out, that's going to be a good fit for the umbrella. Same on the soda can, 3 inches, stitch line to stitch line. And we're actually going to sew this when we sew our main body. That's going to do a couple of things for us, and we'll talk about that shortly. We've also got a bottom that we're going to sew in. Super easy to do. Now, right here, and this is a fun one. My wife is always looking for tissue in my truck, and I'm always coming up short. All I've done here is taken the measurement across the top, the sides, and then I've added 1/4 of an inch to that width. So therefore, I've got about 1/8 of an inch for a bend and 1/8 of an inch outside my stitch line. So when I drop that in, that sits right in that stitch line. So 2 3/4 inch stitch line to stitch line on that. Now we've got some holes at the top here. We're going to put a strap at the top to go around our headrest, and we're going to do two D's on that as an adjustment. We can make that fully adjustable from the bottom. That will fit just about any vehicle. All right, let's jump over to our digital pics. So here's our main body. Like I said, you can use every one of these measurements or absolutely create your own. So I've got a truck, so it's a larger seat. I'm going 22 high by 14 wide. And like I said, here's our measurements. Use these if you would like. Over to our pockets. We've got 2 pics here. So on our left, we've got our cell phone, easy enough, and an umbrella. That's going to be 8 inches by 7 inches. On the right, our soda can, the bottom, and our tissue box. Now on that, we could drop in all kinds of creative holes here. We're just going to go with a simple diamond. All right, our bottom pocket, just a big rectangle. There's our holes for our snap bases. We're at 9, and again, 14-inch width. Same as our main body. Now our last pattern. We're going to have some straps here. All easy to do. They're going to fit right together. So we've got a 12-inch, 20-inch, and 25-inch. Because on this 25-inch, what we're going to do up here is make this adjustable. Very cool. So we can adjust that from the top as well. Down here, that's our billet for our 2 snaps. All right. Hopefully we've got a feel for this. I hope I didn't overcomplicate it because it really isn't complicated. So let's step over, take our main pattern. We're going to cut some leather. We're going to line our seat organizer. All I mean by that is we're going to take 2 pieces of leather, glue these back to back for the main body. Now, a couple points. We don't have to line this. Everything is simply going to sew right onto the face. Secondly, when we line this, it's almost going to double the amount of leather we used. Last point. We're going to have to sew all the way around. So we're going to do about 3 times the sewing. You know what? It's going to be a quality piece. That's all that matters. We're going to have fun doing it. Now, our leather. This is a Santa Rosa. This is what we used for the sample. What I used for the sample we looked at. It's a beautiful blue. But since most of our car interiors are gray, we're going to go with the slate. And I love this. I can't wait to get this in my truck. So our first step, let's start right here. Lay in our pattern. Let's scribe and cut this to size. Good. Look at that. Scribes nicely. I can easily see that. So with our straight edge and new blade always, let's trim this out. We have got our face leather cut. Now, we can certainly use this for all of our pouches. Now, we're going to hold off on cutting our round corners. So, I'm going to pull some more leather out. And what we're going to do is overcut. Good, there we go, good piece. So now, what I mean by overcut is I'm going to cut this about a 1/2 inch all the way around. We'll glue it on, then we'll trim the sides. It's going to look just like it was die cut. There we go. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to move the leather. We're going to reset, glue these two pieces together. We're going to use our barred cement. Love this. It's a great contact cement, but we're going to need some ventilation with this. I've got a good cross breeze. So let's start right here. I'm going to take my face leather. I'm going to lay that on top of my backing leather, just roughly in the middle. And now let's trace this out. Okay. Now, we don't necessarily have to mark this, but I just want to make sure my glue gets over that line so we don't have any air pockets. Now, with our little brush, this would take forever to add glue to both pieces. So let's do this. There we go. How about just a trim paint roller? This is going to work very nicely. And no kidding, this will take no time at all. So what I want to do is get the main body with my roller, but then I'll come back in with my brush and let's just hit the edges. We're just trying to keep this from being a mess. Okay, that takes literally no time at all. So now I'm going to come back in with my brush, get my strings out of the way. I'm going to come back in with my brush. Now let's just get that glue right over that edge. Good. In fact, it actually took more time with the brush just to hit our edges than it did for the entire body. Okay, so let's set that aside. Now when we jump over to our face leather, what I need to do here is get right to my edge. But that's going to be relatively easy with my brush. I'm going to let this sit right on the edge of my table, and I'm just going to brush off the edge. When I get around the edges, then I'll come back in with a roller and finish this off. Well, there we go. That looks good. Super easy to do. Took no time at all. Big point, I've got glue on nothing but my project and a little bit on me, which is going to be there all day. All right, let's give this glue about 5 minutes. Let that wick in and set. Good dry time. Our bin, we can keep this. Now our brush, it's a goner. We have to toss it. But once this glue dries, it'll just peel right back out. So we can use those bins over and over. So let's take our face leather. Now I'm going to try my best to hit this blue line. If we don't hit it spot on, does not matter. We just want to make sure we're kind of in that area so that we have glue right to the edge all the way around. Well, that looks good thus far. Let's take our roller and let's roll particularly around our edges. That feels like it's got some good body to it. That's what we're looking for. Now to trim, what I'm going to do is use my face leather as my straight edge. New blade every time, and let's just cut that as clean as we can along that edge. Look at that. That's what we're looking for. Look how clean that cut is. There we go. Very good. Nice edges on that. Now, we can always overcut both pieces and then trim to size. I just tend to prefer it this way. So on our round corners, if you don't feel confident with these, all we have to do is make about 4 small cuts. Look at that round corner. Now, if it's not perfect, we'll see it, and it'll make us crazy forever well, welcome to Leathercraft. But for the most part, that's a good round corner. That looks good. Very cool. Got nice round corners on that. Let's take our main body. Let's lay this down. And what we're going to do is mark on our stitch lines. So right at the end, I'm going to drop in a mark. Now, on our cell, let's just drop in 2 marks right up here at the top because we're going to glue that in. Then back over here, again, we're going to mark the end of our stitch lines. Good. Now, we're going to have 2 Chicago screw holes right up here. And down here, we've got 2 rivet holes. And at the very bottom, again, 2 Chicago screws. Okay. Well, our pattern is marked. Now, let's do this. Let's take our square. And what I want to do, is we can even put this next to us just to help out. But what I'm going to do now is mark for each of these pockets. So right here, this is for our soda can. I'm just going to make a scribed line right across there. On the umbrella, same thing. Basically, I'm dropping in a line where we're going to add our chisel. Very good. Okay, easy enough. And over here on the can, we're going to sew that onto our edge. A couple of reasons we'll do that. We'll get into that. Okay, so this is pretty much marked, ready to go. Let's pull out some more leather. I'm going to reset. I'm going to cut our bottom pocket. Let's start right there. For this pocket, I'm simply going to scribe again, cut. Let's go ahead and mark our holes for our snaps. But also, while I'm at it, since these are going to work with our bottom pocket, I've got some scrap here. So I'm going to cut our 2 smaller billets out of this. We'll go ahead and knock that out while we're here. Our billets are cut and marked. Same with our main body. Now I've got a little inset cut here. We don't necessarily have to have that, but boy, it's a nice touch. So let's step over to our punch table. Let's start with our billets. So we're going to put a 3/4 inch round in on both ends, both pieces. For our holes, on our pattern, we're a little bit closer to this end on both billets. That's going to be our rivet hole. So let's go up to about the second tube on our revolving punch, and let's punch those 2 holes. Good. Now, we're going to add a line 20 snap. So we'll have a cap here and a base here. So on our revolving, I'm going to go up to about the 3rd, maybe the 4th hole, give or take. Let's reset, add our snaps, and our pocket is all but done. So on our main pocket, we're going to go with the snap base, or the back half of the snap, which is going to be a post, and we've got a flange on the inside. That'll make sense when we look at the cap. Those are set well. Good. Let's jump over to our caps. Now again, on the hole that's a little further away from the end. Therefore, when we drop in our snap, we have a little bit of a tab right there. So our second inset, well, that looks good, very professional. Let's step over to our main table, cut the balance of our pockets. When we cut our pockets, we're going to go ahead and add our groove line in. We can glue these onto our main body and chisel all at once. It's just a mess. There's no great way to keep that glue on a thin line. We're going to use some double-sided tape. Well, that's good, but it's just not strong enough to hold that much of a bow. So what we're going to do is chisel our pocket, then we're going to chisel our main body, sew the 2 together. Makes the whole thing very easy. So on our cell pocket, let's start right here. I'm going to trace this in, cut it, and then I'm going to groove on 3 sides, the 2 sides and the bottom. Now when we groove this, we're not really grooving. We're just using this as a guide for our chisel, so we don't necessarily need to go terribly hard. That's all we need. Okay, let's jump over soda. Soda can or water bottle. There we go. That can drop right in there, making good use of our leather. But when I cut this, again, I'm just going to groove these two lines per our pattern. And our chisel lines. There we go. That's just going to keep us from getting confused. So I'm going to cut the umbrella, the bottom of the can, and the tissue. And our drink bottom, we're just going to groove on the outside curve on that. Let's step over to our punch table, drop in some chisel lines. The large pocket and the cell pocket, we'll glue those and chisel those in place. So really, separately, we're just doing 3 pieces. All right, let's start right here. So I'm going to take my 1/8" flat chisel. What I'm going to do is butt the inside of that first tine against the edge of the leather. Therefore, I'm going to have a consistent distance no matter where I start. So first tine, last hole. And let's just do our best to stay in that groove line. And same thing on our tissue. That looks good. Let's step over to our drink holder. On our circular piece, let's start right here. I've got this marked right at the very center bottom. All I have to do is fold that over. So let's drop in a mark or a chisel right in the center, okay? I'm going to drop in a chisel here. Very good. Now let's go 10 holes on both sides. Well, that's easy enough. So over here, now I've dropped in a groove line across the bottom. I forgot to mention that when we were cutting and grooving. But let's do the same thing. I've got a center mark. Let's drop this down, put a chisel or an awl mark right there in the middle. And again, we're going to do a center and then 10 on each side. And then I'll do my sides just like we've done on everything else. Okay, that looks good. Let's do this. Let's step over and go ahead and get our sewing knocked out right here. We're going to go with a basic saddler stitch. So if you're not up to speed with that, we've got a great video, easy stitch. Our needles, we're going to use the John James number 18. My favorite needle. I love the size on these. On the thread, we've got 2 good points here. First off, on size, we're going to go with a 0.8 millimeter. But all told, it's your project, your call. Any size is going to look good. Here's 2 good examples. So right here, this is sewn on our 303 with a size 92 thread. This is the 0.8 millimeter we're going to use. So they both look good. Now, one cool point, and the second big point here, colors. We've got this in some gorgeous colors. Say we want to tie this into maybe another color in our upholstery or our exterior car color. That would be a nice touch. All right, so our basic saddler stitch. I'm going to start with 1 needle, and I'm going to come through the first hole. There we go. Now, we don't necessarily need to glue this or tape it because this is just going to draw up as we move around. So second hole, both needles, 1 from each side. And let's pull that together. There we go. Okay, let's draw that in. We don't need to draw this too tightly here because it really will ripple on us, this lighter weight leather. But let's just sew this around. Well, this looks good thus far. Now when we get down to our last hole, let's go ahead and complete that just like we do any other stitch. Draw that down. Now I'm going to take my front needle and I'm going to go back to the second hole and I'm simply going to go through the front ply. Pull that in. I'm going to do the same thing on the back. Second hole, but let's just go through that inside ply. Good. Let's pull lengthwise. Get that good and taut. Now up under here, it's our standard square knot. I'm going to tie our knot deep, then I'm going to trim. So right over left and left over right. And let's don't draw that down too tight. Let's take this and just pull our thread over our blade. Good. That's going to sit down in there nicely. Now, a great thing about a pull-up leather, notice I can press in that. The color's going to lighten. then we could rub our fingers right back over it. So if that edge or that stitch line seems a little bright, we can just run our finger back over that. Looks good. Let's jump over and work on our main body. When we jump over to our main body, let's keep our pattern close just so we don't get confused. So right up top here, we're going to have 4 holes. These will be for Chicago screws. These will secure the strap that's going to go around our headrest. So I want a 3/16 inch round hole here. Good. Now, about halfway down, we've got these 2 marks. These are going to be rivet holes, and these are going to hold the 2 billets that we've set a snap on. So I want to go with a 1/8 inch punch here. And our last holes, let's flip this around. So this is going to hold the strap that's going to go under our seat. Chicago screws here as well. And our holes are punched. Okay, I'm going to reset here. We're going to drop in a couple of chisel lines. Now, I remarked these because they were getting a little bit hard to see, but easy enough now. Now, our 2 marks here, that's exactly the end of our pattern. So if I come in basically the width or the spread of 1 tine, these holes are going to line up nicely. So what I can do though, if I want to, I can always lay this right next to that line just to make sure my chisel holes are lining up, but they're absolutely going to do it. And down to the end, and again, that worked out nicely. One of the great things about our chisel, our flat, is that 4 chisel tines sit inside of 1 inch, almost exactly. So it almost always comes out perfectly if we're dealing with, say, 1 inch or 1/2 inch. Okay, let's do the same thing on the other side. And just right again. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here for our tissue pocket. That's going to line up very well. On our soda, we're just going to do one side because we'll sew the other side in on our outside border stitch. Okay, let's jump back over to our main table. We're going to drop in our bottom pocket and our cell pocket. We could chisel everything all at once as long as we have our holes behind our pockets punched. Basically what we're doing is just giving our hands a little rest time. So, with our cell pocket, I've got 2 marks. Camera's probably not going to pick those up, but I can drop that in right there. So, I typically go with glue, but one of the reasons we're chiseling this is because this can be a little hard to control when we're trying to hit a small line. So what we're going to do now is jump over to our double-sided tape. And I love this. Now, it's great for the chrome tans, but once we start to get a little bit of body, it could be a little bit stronger. But all told, let's drop this in and see how it works. There we go. Okay, let's lay this in and we're going to see how the double-sided works. Now, again, it's great. It's great tape. But sometimes when we have to make the bow, it's just not strong enough. Anyway, let's press that down. Now let's do the same thing on our bottom pocket. Well, that is a good fit. That looks good. Let's move this out of the way. Now let's groove all the way around except for our cell pocket. We don't really need to hit that twice. Well, that looks good. It's coming together. Let's step back over to our punch table, finish our chiseling. We have one pocket that's going to sew onto our outside stitch line. But all I have to do here is I've got my mark for my pattern. As long as I come in the same distance, our holes are going to line up nicely. Good. So what I'm going to do is chisel all the way around. Let's pull that out over to our cell case because over here we need to pay a little bit of attention. As I get closer to my cell pocket, I want one tine. as close into that as I can get, simply for consistency, no other reason. But let's take our 4. Good, and let's see where we're going to come out. That's just about right. Let's drop in 1 tine right there. That's going to look very consistent. Good. So I'm going to work my way around to our starting point. And just right. Nice meat there at the end. Last thing to chisel is our sew pocket. So on this, let's start right here, right at the top, so we have a nice meat there. Then I'm going to work my way around, and again, I'm going to try to get in pretty close right here in our corner. One 4 there, and a single tine. Consistency, good. Now, if we're not totally consistent, no one's going to see that except us. And again, it's going to make us crazy, but that's the way it is. So, we've got some sewing to do. Let's step over to our pony and sew this together. When we're sewing this, this is a pretty good sized piece. Now, we've got some good body to it, but let's do this. This is a good trick. I've got a clip on a piece of suede, so it's got some good grip to it, and I've got a slip knot right here. So I can raise this clip up or down, and it's going to hold my project very sturdy. Second point with a project this size is our pony. I've got this clamped down, and I use it this way for most projects, but we can always take this and clamp this onto the side of our table. The point there is let's make it comfortable on our arms and our hands. So let's start right here. Let's take a needle, run that through our last hole and the last hole right there. Good, that'll hold us. And again, we're going to do our saddler stitch straight across. As we get to our last hole, well, that looks pretty good and very little time. So again, we're going to go to our last hole. We're going to back up a hole. Going to come through 1 ply front, 1 ply back, hide our square nut under there. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Get our knot good and deep there. And let's trim our thread. Pull that across our blade. Very good. Okay, let's step up to our cell case. Now what I'll do here, so we don't have a break in our stitch, right on our edge. I'm going to start right here and work my way around. Then we'll tie our knot or hide our knot right here. Good. Now, I don't often sew with chrome, so I don't use the double-sided tape very often. But I tell you what, I am exceptionally happy with the strength of that tape. Okay, let's jump up. We're going to sew this side of our can or our water bottle pocket. Now, last pocket, or last smaller pocket, let's jump over here to our tissue pocket. But before we sew this on, let's do this. Now, this is a chrome tan leather, so it's not going to form for us. But nonetheless, what we can do, let's come in just a little inside of our stitch line, press that up, same on the other side. Now, on our bends, let's just bend this roughly where it looks like we need a bend on the edge of our tissue case. Yeah, we can see that pull-up effect coming through too. Now, like I said, that's not necessarily going to hold that shape, but all told, with a small tissue box in that, it's actually going to do pretty well. Okay, let's sew this on. And same as before, let's sew both sides. And our tissue pocket is in. Let's see how that fits. Very nice. It's good, it's snug, and you notice we are keeping a little bit of that form. Okay, I'm going to reset because we're going to sew all the way around the outside. Now, a couple of points. First off, we don't have to add a liner. But secondly, if we're looking to make a profit on this, we need to go machine. But for us crafters, not really the point. Speed, not necessarily the issue. So, if you don't have a sewing machine, I'll hand sew with you. So let's reset, get ready to sew this main body. When we're sewing our main body, we've got two pockets that go right to the edge. Well, first off, that's going to save us a little bit of sewing. But the bigger point here is this. Now I've got multiple places around my main body to where I can stop, tie a knot, and start again. Therefore, we're not dealing with an 18-foot piece of lace. We've got about 72 inches here. So therefore, 72 inches, we can do about 2 inches a minute. So maybe 35, 40 minutes to sew this. But the big point is that we can stop, tie a knot, let our hands rest. Now, I'll explain that. So I'm going to start on my second hole down on my main pouch. And I'm going to work my way up to the second hole from the top here. I'll tie my knot and then I'll start that thread in that hole. I don't need to back up or do a double loop because that thread's going to start right there and keep moving. The big point here, we'll never see a knot and our hands get a little bit of a break. So I'm going to start right here and I'm going to sew up to the second hole from the top on our can or our drink pocket. As we approach our pocket, let's lay this in with a clip. So I'm going to take that right to the mark from our pattern and clip that on the edge. Our holes are going to line up nicely. We've got our knot in, so let's trim that. And on our next thread, I'm going to start in that last hole. Good. Really all we're doing here is just looking for good consistency in our stitch line. So now I'm going to sew around to the second hole down on my cell pocket. Very nice. Looking good thus far. Let's do this. We've got a couple of straps to do. So let's give our hands a break. Let's knock those out. Once we finish sewing, a couple of rivets, a couple of Chicago screws, and we're done. We can go all kinds of ways with our straps. This is just an easy route. We've got the leather and everything is very adjustable. So we've got a good straight edge here, but I've got a couple of cuts coming in from previous pockets. So let's drop this in right here. And I'm just going to make 3 straps 3/4 of an inch wide. And let's cut to length. Cut to length. All right, let's mark these. Good. Let's step over to our punch table. With our straps, everything here is a Chicago screw except for right here. We're going to drop in 2 Ds. So let's start right there. We're going to use a 1/8 of an inch punch for our rivet holes. Now, everything else is a Chicago screw, so let's go 3/16 inch everywhere else. And let's drop in a 3/4 inch round-in punch on both ends of all 3 straps. Not totally necessary, but it certainly is a nice detail. I'm going to reset here. Let's drop in our Ds and a rivet. Let's keep our pattern close simply because most all of these holes look so similar in distance. So let's take our 2 3/4 inch Ds, slide those on. Now I'm going to go with the smallest or the 1/4 inch in our double cap rivet. And let's set that. Very good. Okay, let's jump back over, finish our sewing, knock our straps on, and we're done. And back to sewing. So like we've done in the past, I'm going to start in the last hole with thread in it. Let's run through there, equalize out. Now what I'm going to do, let's get those 2 needles in there. There we go. What I'm going to do is sew down to about midway through our pocket, somewhere in here. We've got our double-sided tape there, so I can open that up, hide our knot there, then I will complete that, hide our knot right under the throat of that pocket. We've got ample pocket right here. So this knot is a little bit down in here, but all told, we can lay this on our table and tie that knot. So let's clip our threads off. Good. This is looking good. Let's step over to our punch table. I typically will hammer down a stitch line. On a veg tan, it's going to close our holes. It's going to spread out our thread, make it look really good. Right here, we don't necessarily need to. On a pull-up, though, you notice how it gets a little bit light here and there. Well, it's supposed to do that. That's what a pull-up leather is. A lighter color is going to pull up through the leather. But for me, I keep trying to clean everything. This is a rustic leather. It's supposed to look like that. But nonetheless, let's run our finger along our stitch lines just to kind of remove a little bit of that lightness there. There we go. That looks very clean. So I'm going to do that to the balance of the organizer. Well, that looks good. Yay. Okay. Down here, we're going to drop in medium double cap rivets. So let's come through our back. Let's drop that on. Now, we've got a little extra room there, simply because if there's something in here, then that snap's going to fit just right. So let's drop in our cap. Very nice. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. That looks very nice. Yay. Oh, and our snaps work nicely. Okay, let's jump over to our main table, finish this out. Let's start right here. These 4 holes, we've got 2 here, 1 hidden and 1 right there. This is for the strap that's going to go around our headrest on our car seat. So let's take this piece. Now, with our Chicago screws, we're going to go with a 1/4 inch floral. I love these. Very nice touch. High quality look. So on these though, let's go ahead and add a little bit of glue, a little bit of our white glue. We just want to keep these from working out. They're bad about doing that. So on this side, let's drop in our 2 screws from the front. Let's flip this over. Now let's take our longest piece. I'm going to drop that down and drop in screws on this. Now again, these are glued. The other 2 we're not going to glue just yet. Good. Now on this other side, we're not going to add glue just yet because this is going to be adjustable. Like I said, that's going to go around our headrest. So therefore I can move this up or down. So let's drop in 2 screws here without glue. When we drop this on our vehicle, then we can adjust this and add a little bit of glue there. So on the back of our main pocket, let's take 2. Let's add a little bit of glue here. And then let's work these down inside of our pocket to those 2 holes. We went with a 3/16 inch hole punch, which means those are not tight, but they are snug. That's a big help. Now on this is going to look confusing, but you'll see where I'm going with this. So let's drop this piece, top grain down on first. Now let's take our piece with our D's, and we're going to drop that on, top grain up. And we do have glue on these. When we put this on our seat, what we're going to do is this is going to go around a brace or whatever we've got under our seat, and then this piece is going to come through. There we go, through both these. Let's open that up and come back through one. So therefore, that's going to be easy to get to, easy to adjust. All right, let's get a better look at this. Let's start right at the top. Our soda can fits in there nicely. But also, we've got a little extra room there in case we go with a larger bottle. On our tissue, we know that fits in snug and secure. Looks good too. And our umbrella, that is going to sit right in. Now our cell pocket, that's going to fit a number of different sizes of cell phone. And our largest pocket, all kinds of room for notepads, tablets, atlases, and of course the unidentifiable pieces of candy rolling around in the bottom. All right, let's get a picture of this actually on a truck seat. A fun project and a useful project, and look at that, couldn't be happier. Fits well, easy to install, adjusts easily, just what we're looking for. Well, I hope this is a good project. It's certainly a useful project. Now at Weaver Leather, we've got all kinds of options for color. So we can match our interior, contrast our interior. You know what? Let's just make it our own. Let's put those pockets where we want and to hold whatever we want to keep in our vehicle. I hope every seat organizer you make is beautiful, fits well, and lasts from here on out. Good luck with your projects.